throw away waste food, plastic, paper, and everything else. It must go somewhere, right? For many people, throwing away waste is done without a thought of where it ends up or how it impacts the environment. The same can be said about manufacturers and traders. Where does that water bottle or plastic shopping bag end up? What impacts does it have on our environment? Industrialization, increased consumption, utilization of natural resources amid population growth have adverse impacts on our environment, one of which is the accumulation of waste. Accumulation of waste is not only an environmental problem, it is also an economic loss. Welcome to Our Environment, Our Future. I'm your presenter, Ruth Venzu Witola. Our focus on the program today is the Extended Producer Responsibility EPR regulations. Faced with increasing amounts of waste, many governments, including Zambia, have reviewed policy options. They have concluded that it is vital to place responsibility on producers for the post-consumer phase of some products. Extended Producer Responsibility EPR regulations is a policy approach under which producers are given a significant responsibility, financial or physical, in the treatment and disposal of post-consumer products. On 3rd August 2018, the government of the Republic of Zambia, through the Zambia Environmental Management Agency, ZEMA, launched the Environmental Management Extended Producer Responsibility EPR regulations, statutory instrument number 65 of 2018.
What necessitated, this piece of legislation is multifaceted. First, to begin with, we've only got one continent on which we live as human beings. And we have got a responsibility to look after it. To look after it does not only begin by making sure that we birth and we eat, but we've got to look after the environment. So the greatest desire out of this legislation was to first promote and manage and clean the environment. Because out of our environment, there's so many beneficiaries that we have. And not only human beings benefit from it, but also wildlife and environment itself. So for us, it is keeping down the pollution of whatever sense and make the environment to look far much better. But we can't do anything unless we have got a legal framework. And this statutory instrument number 65 of 2018 speaks to that. So we've got to look after environment. That is a bigger thing. In the area where we want to make our environment clean, safe, and healthy, in a place like Zambia, our food is not Frankenstein, with a common word that you call it genetically modified. We don't have those types of food. Our food is organic because our soil, our environment is very good. Now, if we start to put in any other additives and any contaminants in the same ground where we bring our own good food, then we are headed into trouble. So coupled up with many more other, precipitating factors, we thought we should clean our environment, and that necessitated this piece of legislation.
EPR regulations will provide incentives to prevent waste at source. It will promote product design for the environment and support the achievement of public recycling and materials management goals, such as the ban of non-recyclable plastic. The passing of this law did not happen overnight.
Initially, when the government started to put together a comprehensive policy on environment was sometime in the early 80s. and that had to now define a number of issues that needed to be attended to. So waste management was one of those issues that was identified as a problem. So as we get into the 90s, we still see some problems still being further defined in the early 2000s. So 2005, 2006, 2007 particularly, we started talking about putting together a framework. So what we needed to do was to put together a law, but before that, we started with a standard. So the standard, we isolated one particular aspect of the extended producer responsibility, which basically looks at a product that one produces or one handles, places it on the market. They should have responsibility beyond the post-consumer stage. And so one of the aspects that we isolated was plastics, plastic carrier bags and plastic flat bags. So for plastic carrier bags and flat bags, we started discussions for a standard, and that was 2007. Then we, of course, had to put together that standard under the auspices of the Zambia Bureau of Standards. And the process itself required that we consult. And so we consulted quite heavily, working with the Zambia Bureau of Standards. We had academia, we had government, we had industry, both from the chambers of industry as well as the Association of Manufacturers, to discuss what we do with particularly plastic carrier bags. So 2008, we concluded through that technical working group and the consultations, we concluded the standard called the ZS1E3, which was actually adopted in 2008. So that standard now is on plastic carrier bags and flat bags. So it does provide specifications. But then that standard was voluntary until recently, okay? So was voluntary, meaning that it needed a legal framework within which to operate. And that is how we also, as we were talking about the standard, developing the standard, we also were talking about putting together a law, a regulation. And at that time, we had the Environmental Protection and Pollution Control Act, which was a 1990 act, of course amended in 1999. It didn't expressly provide for extended producer responsibility, so you could only rely on the general provisions. But within that very time, again, we started reform of the law. The need for us to have a clear law that will help us with extended producer responsibility. But nonetheless, we still proceeded to propose a layman's draft of the extended producer responsibility regulations, which went through the usual processes. We discussed, again, consultations with the various stakeholders that I've highlighted. And of course, it took a while, and there was some kind of silence until later on, again, after the passing of the Environmental Management Act, now in 2011. This particular act made specific provision under Section 58 for extended producer responsibility. So with that, we now could proceed to develop a regulation which already has footing, clear footing in the Mother Act, if you like. So that is how we found ourselves now developing the extended producer responsibility regulations to operationalize those provisions that are in the Environmental Management Act of 2011.
The issuance of the Extended Producer Responsibility Regulations was not well received by some citizens and sectors, while others commended the move.
Banning abare pangama diaper, not ama plastic. Pantu moneni, umuntu lionse abombya plastic. Kusenda maplani umunani in plastic. Mamon. Umuntu aresho tumbarara in plastic. Fionse in plastic. Nomba toakula bika mwisa.
For environmental purposes, that idea is very much welcome. Now the only problem that we have, especially here, is that some of us, we sell those plastics, you see. So for us, it's a source of living. That's the way we make money, rather than stealing. So we are welcoming that idea. But again, the government should think of it, you know. Now, what should they do for us? Because to us, that's business. That's the way we survive. It's a source of income to us.
Because this one is plastic. It's in which it shows such one plastic. Gala market was that to tomato, plastic. Which tattoo carpenter, nimu plastic. Bakwe miya fin to put nimu plastic. No manga balesha plastic. Ngawa yamgushite omunani. Balafi ponya fe munemu inero shani.
It is welcome. And a long time ago, we didn't have some plastics. We used to buy bread, you put them in the paper. So otherwise, this environment, we are coming to say that it's well and welcome.
Lia shiri letero buteko, lia shkwena na yumfika, na kabili lia shina ripokerirwa. Kozi lia shiri ama plastics, nifyo fine kwena, nga mwatimuloreshe mumusebo. Mumusebo munso mulemo nikafima plastics fie. Efile mwene shafie fiko. Kwena ama plastics futi, turasanga mobu wafuirisho ma plastics yene. Aina ma plastics yene, fo bambitula shisha, turabomfia kwa ma plastics yene. Nombo buteko. Po binga tuwafuirisha kokwe bacha ama plastics bakanye batuletere ko method benga tuletela ko nishiyo ine method yo tungafayo kukwatako.
In an extended producer responsibility EPR system, the cost of redesign, reuse, recycling, composting, and even some disposal options for consumer products and packaging are included in the retail price. This approach ensures that the costs of end-use management are borne by producers and consumers, rather than externalized onto society or the environment. A win-win for all.
The ban of plastic is not a total ban. Actually, it's a partial ban in that there's a certain plastic that has been banned. So anything that has got, anything that is of thickness less than 30 microns is what has been banned. This is in accordance with the standard, the Zambian standard ZS719, which actually specifies the plastic that should be in use. So any plastic that is of thickness 30 microns or above, that's what is allowed. And anything less than 30 microns, actually you're not allowed to use it. So in terms of manufacturing, we expect that manufacturers will be manufacturing plastic carrier bags or plastic flat bags that are of thickness of 30 microns or above.
The Zambia Environmental Management Agency has begun implementing the Extended Producer Responsibility EPR regulations. The announcement regarding enactment of the regulations was made last year, but we gave sufficient time to industry and major stakeholders to prepare for its implementation. So effective 14th of February this year, we began enforcing the provisions that relate to compliance to the national standards for plastic carrier bags and flat bags. So in relation to that, that particular provision of the EPR has been enforced, and we're now requiring any producer, manufacturer, retailer, or a distributor of plastic carrier bags, or including importers, to ensure that any plastic carrier bags that are being used in the country are compliant. So that provision is already active. In addition to that, the deadline for registration of all other packaging products that are covered in the Extended Producer Responsibility will come into force on the 13th of August. So we've basically given a 6 months grace period to anybody whose packaging materials or products is covered. The other thing that we are doing as a regulator in terms of implementing EPR is ensuring for those deadlines that have already come into force, like the plastic carrier bags, as a way forward, we are ensuring that they adhere to the standards. So our inspectors will continue conducting compliance monitoring. We're able to go out with basic devices such as a micrometer to check that the thickness for the plastic carrier bags that are being used are still compliant. In addition to that, we will also continue conducting awareness raising among the affected industries, but also members of the community, so that they understand why now there's a drive towards the promotion of alternative bags or indeed plastic carrier bags in the shopping centers out there.
There has been a positive response to the implementation of the Extended Producer Responsibility EPR regulations from chain stores such as Food Lovers, ShopRite, Pick n Pay, and Choppies, among others.
We have deliberate policies that our directors have put in place, which include we have absolute support for a green Zambia, where the waste is reduced, and as a main stakeholder, we want to be seen to participate in this process, and so we are encouraging the use of biodegradable bags, and this has been a keen policy for us as an institution way before the EPR SI was put in place. So we are passionate about this, and it is something that we are also involved in through our PR and marketing campaigns of keeping Zambia green and keeping it fresh.
So much attention has been given to the ban of single-use plastic material, but it is important to note that the EPR SI number 65 includes other packaging materials.
Section 58 of the Environmental Management Act, that's where the EPR is coming from. And it clearly states that any person that creates any waste that will have an effect on the environment, they must extend the responsibility. So the attention is not on plastics, but on any waste that will have the potential to pollute the environment. I can give other examples like, used tires, used batteries, used electronic gadgets. All those areas, they need the producer to extend the responsibility. So EPR is not only addressing the plastics, but it's addressing all sorts of waste that will have the impact on the environment.
We can have very good jobs for our people, the jobs that will give them fringe benefits as well, and that are pensionable, because what will be happening is any other type of plastic that they'll be able to use on the market, such as plastic bottles, such as even, carrier bags that has got, above 30 microns, those are recyclable. So those people who were probably selling these on the streets, they could find themselves being employed through the Ministry maybe of Local Government or any other private entity for recycling the plastics. But it is very interesting because the other expectation that we are thinking and we have thought through, if you have lived a little longer like I've lived on Earth, you discover that at one particular time, Zambia used to buy, plastic shoes for women from Malawi. They were calling them mariposa. And those were excellent. Women's heels were not cracked, amanga. They were not having those. And they were so cheap but very nice. Those were coming from recycling plastics. And we are hopeful that from this, our expectation, we could recycle all plastics. They can produce patapatas. They can produce plastic shoes. They can also produce conduit pipes, which some are doing. People are constructing houses and places of dwellings and infrastructure everywhere. They need conduit pipes, and that could be done. So that is our expectation, and it is a very positive expectation, and this is going to take place.
Plastics which were below 30 microns, it was very, very difficult to recycle them. The moment you subject them to heat, because if you had to recycle plastic, it must be subjected to heating. So those plastics which are at below 30 microns, it was difficult to recycle them. That's why it was suggested that we get 30 microns and above. South Africa, actually, they're at 50 microns and above. So for us as a country, we started on 30, and as we go on, there might be an increase to a better, but better still, the 30 microns is now recyclable. And as you might see, some of the products that are made from the same plastics, that is 30 microns. These are some of the products that can get, these are hangers, which are made from recyclable plastics, which is above 30 microns. Other products that can be made from recyclable plastics, the one that we are now, we've increased the thickness, things like this, dustpans. You can make such materials from such plastics.
Our environment has got to be kept clean. And so it is very important that everybody else comes on and look at this at a very positive way. And we are hoping the market itself, like grocery stores that have been in the forefront to give people plastics, they can be in the forefront to lead the way and show the positivity of what it is going to be like living without plastics. They are a nuisance, to say the least. If you go on the beaches, you find they are clogged up. Here in Lusaka, if you drive along, the ring road, and you see the amount of plastics that are there is gigantic. And we can't live like that. So we can be poor, but we should not be dirty. So we're expecting everybody else to look at it in a positive way. We help one another, and we should no longer work in silos, but in clusters. That what is good for the goose should also be good for the gander. And this is what it is. It is a win-win situation for everybody.
The difficulty lies not so much in developing new ideas. It usually lies in an attempt to escape from old ones. The Extended Producer Responsibility EPR regulations is a step towards a clean, green and healthier Zambia. Let's band together and fight plastic and all other forms of pollution. If you can't reuse it, refuse it. You have been watching Our Environment, Our Future. My name is Ruth Benzuwitola. Goodbye for now.